So just to say that Magen David Adom in Israel operates under the law of Magen David Adom. And this happened in 1950 when the Knesset decided that there should be one organization, non-governmental, non-for-profit, that will take care of all the emergency medical services, all the ambulances, the white ones, the basic life support, and the now yellow ones, which are the intensive care units, and the medicycles, and the 2 helicopters that we have, and everything that we, the population, need to bring somebody from their home, or from the street, or from a terrorist attack, or from whatever injury they have to the hospital. So 101 is the number that everybody dials if they need somebody to come to them usually now in a few minutes, to assist them, to take care of them, and if needed, to transport them to the hospitals. Will Magen David Adom developed now a system that almost automatically, if identifies a call, automatically identifies the 5 first aid givers that are closest to the point. It can be a volunteer that is at home. It can be an MDA basic life support, advanced life support, a medicycle, anybody who can come and assist the patient while the ambulance is on the way. So with that we can, with 3,000 people and 30,000 volunteers, we can really provide the service throughout the country. And that's why whenever something happens, the first thing that you see on the television are the Magen David Adom ambulances. And speaking of that, by the way, tonight is the night of Lag BaOmer. It's the big thing that goes on Mount Meron. And it was the first and terrible thing that happened last year, where there was a disaster on the mountain and 45 people were killed, most of them of suffocation on the mountain. So our people were there since yesterday. They were drilling the whole thing, how to evacuate, in what kind of vehicles, and how to react to people in case of a disaster, but also in case that somebody is too tired or doesn't feel well, etc. So the point that we are part of the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement allow us to really take participate in many acts that the Federation does. So for example, just now in Ukraine, there is a collaboration going between Magen David Adom and the German Red Cross, where we help them to evacuate wounded people from Ukraine by armed ambulances of the German Red Cross out of Ukraine. So there are paramedics, mostly Russian-speaking, and you know we have many Russian speakers in Israel, helping them there. The other thing that Magen David Adom is involved in Ukraine was opening a clinic, actually not in Ukraine, but in Moldova, in Kishinev, to treat patients who came out of Ukraine, and also to train the public on first aid, because now everybody should know how to stop bleeding, or how to resuscitate, or start resuscitation, or do things if something happened to people around you under the war. Because in the last 2.5 years, actually, you know, COVID in Israel started in February. And Magen David Adom first opened a call center because people wanted to get information, what to do, what not to do, where to go, where not to go, where can you be tested, what to do. And Magen David Adom opened within 2 nights a call center that received up to 50,000 calls at night, usually after the 8 p.m. news. And then we were involved in sample taking, because there were neighborhoods where people live in very crowded neighborhood, and they didn't have cars to come and be checked. Although we also opened our drive-through, you can stay in your car, which was great. But what do you do about the people who live in very close neighborhoods and do not have cars? So we went from one apartment to another, and we actually took samples from everybody and sent them to the laboratories that were doing the tests. And then vaccination came up. So vaccination of elderly people were done by Magen David Adom medics. Last but not least, of course, is the blood services, because unlike here or in England, when in Jordan, where the blood services is national, it actually belongs to the Ministry of Health. In Israel, we operate the national blood services, and as Dr. Hadid said, we are living in an earthquake-prone area, and you all know that, because the first documented earthquake that we all know is described in the Bible. In the Sodom and Gomorrah story, where there was a major earthquake from Syria to Africa, which created the Jordan Valley. So we know it will happen. And we know that we have to be prepared for that. And the other thing that we learned throughout the years, that our neighborhood is a complicated neighborhood to live in. And both our neighbors from the north, from Lebanon and from Gaza, have now missiles that can easily reach Tel Aviv. The event of a missile hitting the major and only blood center of the country, I think, is just a matter of time. So it took us a few years to convince the decision makers in Israel that we need to find a place where we can build a shielded, protected, bigger blood center, which will enable us to actually double what we do today. And we actually finished building these new blood services center, which enable us to process up to 500,000 units, blood units a year. So it will provide service to the country for the next 20 to 30 years, because of course not every day you build something like this. The building is magnificent. It has 3 above ground floors, but the most important things are the 3 underground floors, where there's a huge laboratory that is all actually a shelter, that in case of emergency, we can, I learned the word to button it, we can close it, and it will be protected against conventionally a chemical and biological weapon. And then in the -3 level, which is like 15 meters below ground, there's where we are going to store the blood inventory, the ready-to-use blood and plasma inventory, so whenever we need it, even the drivers who come to take it to the hospitals will be protected when they go in like a ramp that takes them underground, and they'll be protected while they're taking it out. The whole building, $135 million, was all built based on the very, very philanthropic and generous donation of the American Friends of Magen David Adom and the Friends of MDA UK, and I know some of you guys. But I hope that by the end of the year we'll be there operational, and at that time we would be absolutely protected from man-made and natural disasters, and we can continue operating whatever is needed for the country and for the people of Israel without any interruption. Last but not least, the Minister of Health came to us and say, what about opening a human breast milk bank? And we say, huh? Like you say, huh? And they say, yeah, there's no public, supervised milk bank in Israel. And why is it needed? First of all, it is needed for premature babies. Some premature babies, especially when they are very young, depend on human milk. They cannot tolerate the formulas, and they have to be fed by human milk. And sometimes mother cannot feed them, or sometimes there's no mother. And especially we found that during COVID, that some women gave birth and then died. And Magen David Adom, like we did with the COVID, we have this thing of Naaseh v'nishma, as said in the Bible. We'll do, and then we'll think how to do it. And of course I said, yeah, why not? No. Yeah, so in 2 years we actually built the first public national milk bank in Israel, and we are now providing a milk bank to premature babies in Israel. And when people say, what do you, Magen David Adom, has to do with that? We say, our motto is saving lives. So this is what we do. We can do it with the ambulances, we can do it with the blood, and we can do it with human milk. Last thing I want to say is to really thank you for what you're doing. Some people say you are behind us, and you are enabling us to do what we do. You're not behind us, you are with us. You are with us shoulder to shoulder. With you, with your help, we can do what we do. Because if we would just rely on any kind of a little, I would say, financial support that we get fee for our services, we would have never been able to do what we do, not with the new ambulances, the mobiles, the blood mobiles, the new building, the new technology, the new human milk bank. Nothing would be happening in Israel in the level of medicine that we know how to provide and we can provide without your help. So I want to really thank you, not on behalf of myself, but also all the employees, the volunteers of Magen David Adom, and mostly the patient of Israel. And you enable us to stand as part of the Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent and say, here we are, this is what we know, this is how we can share, and we have a huge amount of supporters throughout the world to help us do that. So thank you very, very much for everything you've done. Thank you, and you're doing. Thank you.